From Poverty to Presidency, Nelson. Mandela's English lesson. In a small village in South Africa, a young boy once walked barefoot on dusty roads, not knowing that his steps would echo across the world. His name was Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. He was born into poverty, raised in a simple hut, and taught the values of community, storytelling, and respect for others. At that time, no one could have imagined that this boy would grow into a man who would inspire generations with his courage and forgiveness. You are watching Learn English Listening, the channel where inspiring life stories meet practical English learning. Here you can improve your listening skills while discovering lessons that touch the heart. Mandela's childhood was not marked by wealth or luxury. He tended cattle, listened to the wisdom of elders, and dreamed of a life where his people would be treated with dignity. That dream would later become his mission. He was not different from any of us at the start. He laughed, played, and faced struggles like every child. Yet his ordinary beginnings are what make his extraordinary journey so powerful. Think for a moment about your own life. We all come from somewhere, a hometown, a family, a set of memories that shape us. For Mandela, those early roots gave him strength in moments of darkness. His story reminds us that greatness does not require perfect beginnings. It requires vision, resilience, and hope. And perhaps, when you look back at your own beginnings, you may discover that the very challenges you thought were limits are in fact the seeds of your greatest strengths. And now, let me ask you something to bring us closer. What does the place where you grew up look like today? Share it in the comments, because your story, like Mandela's, is part of the journey that shapes who you are. As Nelson Mandela grew older, the realities of South Africa's racial system became impossible to ignore. He saw how opportunities were denied to people of color, how families were broken apart by unfair laws, and how injustice was woven into daily life. His decision to study law was not just about earning a career, but about defending those who had no voice. The struggle was not simple. He joined movements that demanded equality, stood in crowded halls filled with passionate voices, and faced constant surveillance from the authorities. Each day brought a new risk. Yet his belief in justice kept him moving forward. Mandela once said, "I never lose. I either win or learn." Those words are a powerful reminder that even in the hardest times, there is growth. But the price was heavy. He was arrested multiple times, separated from his family, and painted as a criminal by those in power. Imagine carrying the weight of an entire nation's hope while locked behind bars. It is easy to feel overwhelmed when life corners us. Maybe you too have faced a time when everything seemed against you: career struggles, broken relationships, or unfair treatment. So let me ask, have you ever felt trapped in a situation where no option seemed fair? Think about that moment, because Mandela's resilience can speak directly to you. He endured because he believed that one person's courage could open doors for millions. His reflection teaches us that strength is not born from comfort, but from confronting the storm and refusing to let it define you. And perhaps most of all, it teaches us that resilience is not about never falling. It is about rising each time, even when your heart feels heavy. And in that rising, you discover strength you never knew you had. Strength that can carry not only yourself, but also those who look up to you. What made Mandela's story extraordinary was not just his fight, but the way he chose to fight. He understood that hatred could not build a new nation. Instead of answering violence with more violence, he discovered the hidden key: forgiveness. Mandela once declared, Courage is not the absence of fear. It's inspiring others to move beyond it. That is why he became more than a leader. He became a teacher of the human spirit. Let us pause here and learn a few simple English words that carry his message. Forgive, to let go of anger and choose peace. Justice, the fair treatment that every person deserves. Freedom, the right to live without chains, whether physical or emotional. These words are not just vocabulary. They are lessons. When you say forgive, you practice healing. When you say justice, you stand with truth. When you say freedom, you remember why Mandela's sacrifice mattered. Think about your own life. Is there someone you could forgive today? Could you bring a small piece of justice to your community? Could you give yourself freedom from a burden you've carried too long? These reflections are small keys, waiting in your hand. Mandela's hidden key was simple yet radical. Real change begins when we refuse to let bitterness rule our hearts. That key did not only open the gates of his prison, it unlocked the path toward building a new South Africa. And for you, it may unlock the next step toward your own transformation, however small it seems. And maybe, just maybe, the words forgive, justice, and freedom can become part of your own daily vocabulary, shaping how you live and how others remember you. The iron gate clanged shut behind him, and years stretched like an unending road. On Robben Island, Nelson Mandela rose before dawn, worked the blinding limestone quarry, and returned to a small cell where the sea winds slipped under the door. 27 years is more than a sentence. It is a season of the soul. Yet he kept studying, kept writing, kept training his mind to serve a future he could not yet touch. He learned the language of his opponents to understand them. He led with discipline when despair tried to take over. He turned routine into resistance. Exercise, reading, reflection. He refused to let anger rule him. It always seems impossible until it's done, he would later say. But inside the prison walls, he practiced that sentence like a daily breath. The day the gate finally opened, he walked slowly, holding Winnie's hand, smiling not as a victor over enemies, but as a servant of a nation. He said, "As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew that if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison." That is the hinge of history, the moment resentment lost and humanity won. Think of your own inner prison, a habit that keeps you small, a grudge that steals your sleep, a voice that says you can't. Freedom begins with one step repeated many times. Replace the spiral of complaint with the practice of courage. Replace the rush to react with a breath. Replace the urge to be right with the choice to grow. So let me put it plainly for this week's turning point. If you could change one habit this week, what would it be? Name it, write it down, then take one small action today and another tomorrow until the impossible becomes simply done. His freedom did not end the struggle, it transformed it. He met former jailers with open hands, invited opponents to the same table, and turned symbols of division into signs of belonging. Leadership, he showed, is choosing long horizons over short anger. That choice is available to you right here in the next ordinary minute. And sometimes the ordinary minute is where history quietly begins. And if you take it seriously, you may realize that your next ordinary choice could ripple farther than you imagine, touching lives you may never meet. Think of a seed buried deep in the ground. At first, it seems lost in darkness, pressed under soil, hidden from sight. Yet in time, that seed breaks open, stretches upward, and becomes something strong and alive. Nelson Mandela's life in prison was like that seed. What looked like an ending was, in truth, preparation for a new beginning. His years behind bars shaped not just his body, but his spirit. He chose not to grow bitter, but to grow deeper. He turned pain into wisdom, silence into strategy, and waiting into strength. This is a lesson for all of us. Every storm, no matter how fierce, eventually waters the ground for new growth. Let us take one more English word from Mandela's journey: equality. The belief that every person, regardless of background, deserves the same respect. When you say equality, you speak a promise. You tell yourself and others that no voice is too small, no dream too distant. Ask yourself today, what part of your life feels like that buried seed? Is it a dream on hold, a relationship in need of healing, or a habit you want to change? Remember, what is hidden now can rise later. Growth is not instant, but it is real. Mandela's story teaches us this. We cannot always choose the soil we are placed in, but we can choose to push through it, reaching for light. And when you do, you may find that your roots spread wider than you imagined, giving you the stability to weather storms you never thought you could endure. When Nelson Mandela finally became president of South Africa, he stood not as a man seeking revenge, but as a leader offering reconciliation. He placed former rivals in the same government, wore the jersey of the national rugby team once seen as a symbol of division, and showed the world that true leadership is healing, not hurting. His life asks each of us a question. In your own journey, you will face crossroads. The choice between holding on to anger or choosing forgiveness, between comfort and growth, between silence and courage. Mandela chose the harder path, and because of that, a nation found hope. At this moment, you too stand at a crossroad. Will you stay in the familiar safety of resentment, or will you step forward into the risky but powerful freedom of forgiveness? Your decision may not change a country, but it will change your life. So let me leave you with this gentle challenge. Which path will you take today? Will you hold on to the weight of yesterday, or step into the light of tomorrow with open hands? Remember, the path you choose becomes the story you tell, and every small act of courage adds a line to that story, one that can inspire others long after your moment has passed. If this video gave you something meaningful, share it with someone who needs encouragement right now. And subscribe to Learn English Listening so we can keep walking together, learning not only new words, but new ways to live with courage and hope.